the CEO and founder of Sanders Hands, Sebastian Sanders. Welcome to Uncensored Wisdom.
What's up, man? How you doing? Thank you for having me.
Oh yeah, no problem, brother. I've been checking you out on Instagram for a little while now. So, very interesting guy, right? And I would like to start off like you growing up as a child. You know, what got you into business? What molded your mind?
I think it was my parents. You know, since I was a little boy, you know, I always wanted to be like my dad, and so growing up, I kind of had a unorthodox way of growing up. Like I didn't like toys as a kid, and I tell this story, and people think I'm playing, but I'm like for real. Like I really didn't like toys growing up. All I wanted was a play money, play cell phone, and I that's all I wanted. So you know, growing up, that was my thing. I just wanted to be just like my dad, and so my dad was an entrepreneur, my mother was an entrepreneur, and so seeing them build their different businesses and have sustainable businesses and give me a really good childhood, businesses was kind of something that was always in front of me. And so growing up, you know, I started, you know, to do my little hustling thing. I think my first business that I ever started probably was CDs back in like, I can't really remember, but this was when LimeWire was popping. And so I was, you know, on LimeWire downloading all these songs, and then I go on Google, I'm figuring out like what's the next big album that's getting ready to come out, and I'm going find a track list, and then just downloading the songs and printing them up, and then I would sell them at the parties. My mom and dad used to have a lot of family parties and stuff like that, and so I'm always going around passing out CDs. And you know, back then when you're young, you're not really giving the best customer service. So I was actually doing these CDs, but it really wasn't the real album. You know, some of these songs may be an old song, it may not even be the actual artist. Well, you know, I'm just doing my thing and making some money, and so I did that for a little bit. I started to wash cars around the house. And then I got into high school, got into clothing, started doing T-shirts and selling candy. And then I went on to college and officially started my nonprofit organization.
Right. That's dope. That's dope. Okay, so you went to college for business, correct?
Yes, sir. Business management.
So going into it, you was like, okay, I've had to watch my parents give me the building blocks. Now I want to get the fundamentals. You felt like you would get the fundamentals for school?
Yeah, you know, college was something we talked about, I think probably starting off in like 8th grade. My dad made sure, you know, we had those conversations. He made sure I was on a trajectory to go to college. And so me, you know, I was ecstatic to go to college maybe since I was a high school freshman. I was in the top 10% of my class. I went to University of Texas at San Antonio. And for me, you know, college was utilizing the platform and the stepping stone, but it was also, it was history because I was the first generation student. So I was the first person in my immediate family to graduate from college. And so for me, it was more than just education. It was history. It was a lot of things that went with it. But it allowed me to grow up as a man and mature and develop. And so the time that I spent in college is really the epitome of my success because I've networked. I learned how to build a network. I moved to a whole nother city where I had to start pretty much from scratch and really start a business without no resources at all. I learned a lot about business from my peers and from my college professors, and it allowed me to graduate and get that big time job fresh out of college to make some money. And so for me, you know, it was more than just the education, but it was more so of setting the standard and the procedure for my career, my life.
Wow. Okay. So what was that career that you got straight out of college? What was it?
Yeah, my first job out of college was with PepsiCo as a customer management associate. Pepsi is a global Fortune 50 company, and they have this program where they recruit college talent straight from college after you graduate, and they bring you through this campus hire program where you're trained for about 18 months. Depending on what side of business you go into, I came from business, so I went into sales. You're trained for about 18 months to become a leader. And so I spent about 12 months in my first role just learning operations, being in the field. And then I got my first big role as a sales manager. I think I was 21, 22, or maybe 23, I can't remember. But that was about 3 years ago. And so my first job relocated me to Oklahoma City. So right after I graduated, I think 2 months later, I relocated to Oklahoma City, started a whole new life. I became a sales manager at a young age. I managed a really big team. I think I had about 13 sales reps that were under me, and my territory was generating a little bit over $10 million in revenue per year. And so really big operation for me as a young manager, but it taught me so much. Made a lot of mistakes, but a lot of those mistakes made me a better business person and a better businessman, and overall a better leader.
Right. Those mistakes will do it.
Yep.
Those mistakes will do it. So what was the vision? Did you have a vision like what you were going to do after the corporate world?
Yeah, you know, when I first got my role, I told my dad and my mom, I said, I want to retire by the age of 30 or before 30, because by this time, I think when I went to Oklahoma, organization was around for about 3-4 years now. So I was already building up the program and operations where I can see the end goal, where it was going. I knew this organization was just going to be bigger than just what it was in my college dorm. I started my organization when I was 19 years old, with little to no resources, no funding, just a kid in a dream. And so when I started my organization, we took off so fast. We started off doing volunteer events, and then by the end of the first year, we already had service of over 1,000 kids. So I was seeing where we were going, and that was kind of my true calling and my passion. I feel like this is what I was put on earth to do. And so for me, I knew in order for me to really step into that full time, I'm going to have to set goals for myself to say, hey, Sebastian, you're going to work this job for a few years, but at some point you have to transition out. And so for me, I said, I want to be done by the age of 30. And that was my goal. And so it happened at 26 a lot earlier than I expected, but that's because of the consistency and the hard work that was put in for the last 6 years. But ultimately that was, God's plan, because my plan was 30. God's plan was a way different than what I imagined.
Right. So you seen it like this. I would work here, retire at 30, and then start,
Yeah.
Okay.
That was the goal. I'm going to stay here for a few years, build up some capital, build up my social network, learn more about business as a business owner and operator, and then step away from the corporate life and assume full-time executive director and founder of the organization. And I always tell people, you got to crawl before you walk. And sometimes, in order to be a good leader, you have to be a good follower. So my time spent at Pepsi, it was more than just having a nice salary and having a nice position, but it taught me a lot. I learned from good leadership, bad leadership. I learned from billion-dollar industry, how to operate a business. I learned so many things that I now implement into my business. And so for me, it was really about becoming a student of the game and not jumping out there too early. And that was my biggest fear. I didn't want to get out there when I wasn't ready. And so, I kind of had this goal. I said, okay, by 30, I want to leave and do this. And it was something I worked hard for. I was working every day, 9 to 5. I'm managing a position, so I got a big responsibility here. But then after that, I'm going after school programs, or I'm taking time off to travel and go and speak, or I'm taking this meeting, I'm doing this event. So I was literally working 2 jobs, for the last 6-7 years. I've been doing this for a while, even as a college student, even when I was working. And so you got to put in that work. Sometimes you got to, I look at it like you got to do certain things now to live the life you want to do later. And that was what it was all about, because I'm 26 now. I don't have any kids. I'm not married yet. So I got that flexibility to work a 9 to 5. But then after that, I can go from 5 to 9 and go do a program here and there. I got all this energy in the world. Let me put all that energy into this versus trying to do it when I'm 30 or 40 years old, when I'm most likely going to be married. I'm most likely going to have kids. I'm not going to have that time and flexibility. So I said, I'm going to go as hard as I can now in my 20s. That way, 10 years from now, I can say, okay, I can sit back and say, hey, we built this up. And now it's kind of on autopilot.
Right. Smart man.
Yep.
Smart man. Okay. So what came first, the speaking, you writing the book? What came?
That's a good question. So for me, honestly, it all started because I wanted to be a rapper. That's how I discovered my voice. And so I love rap music. Rap is a huge part of our culture. And so for me, I was a huge Tupac fan. His music resonated so much with the culture and so much with me and my mission. I wanted to be a rapper. So I was like 19. I think this is around the year Lil Yachty, Lil Uzi was blowing up, SoundCloud and all that stuff. So everybody's trying to be a rapper at this point.
Right. And
so I'm making this one song. This one song was called Slaves. It's about me wearing a bunch of chains and all that. And so, I wrote the song for like 3 months. I got it mixed, mastered. I put a lot of money into the song. It didn't go anywhere. I never even released the song officially. I told my homies, I was like, how y'all like it? And they was like, it's all right, bro, but it ain't all that. This ain't that good. And so for some reason, I just didn't feel confident in releasing that. And so I kind of felt like it just wasn't, a part of my destiny and what I was chosen to do. And so literally 2 weeks later, I met with my college advisor. Me and her were just talking about, hey, your last 2 years, how you want to get your resume together and your experiences so you can have that big job when you graduate. And I remember, that's when she sparked into my mind. She said, figure out what you're good at. And for me, it's always been business and community. And so that's kind of how I transitioned from trying to be a rapper and going into the nonprofit industry. But that's really how I found my voice. If I didn't go through that time of wanting to be a rapper, I wouldn't be able to get in front of thousands of students and teachers and have the confidence and speak. If I didn't write those songs, I wouldn't be able to write a book. And so for me, to answer your question, the speaking came first. And that came from me trying to be a rapper. Once I figured out, like, I have a voice And I've always been a vocal person. I've always been a leader. I was always a person that would get up and do stuff in front of the class. So I've always had that knack for leadership and being able to do presentations. But now I'm actually formulating and putting it together. And that's really how I became a public speaker.
Wow. That took me back. I wouldn't have thought that. But yeah, it helped you develop your voice though,
Yeah,
right.
exactly,
For sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So you enjoy speaking to the youth. Why is this?
You know, speaking to the youth is kind of like my rapping in a sense, right? You know, it's kind of me giving our message out. I can't rap and do none of those things like that. So I had to figure out a different way to craft my message to the kids. And I enjoy doing it because it's reach one, teach one. I may have 1,000 kids in the crowd. They all may be listening, but there's one that's really gonna take in that message and is gonna apply it and it's gonna change their life. And it's building a legacy. Because, you know, if you mold kids the right way, you teach them things at a young age, those lessons will stick with them. The things that my parents did for me sticks with me to this day. And so if I can go in front of a group of students and I can speak to them and I can show them different things and I can tell them different things, you never know whose life you may be impacting. And so for me, it's bigger than just giving out a message and then walking off. That's one of the reasons why I like to say I'm really not a youth motivational speaker. Like I don't really like the tagline because I feel like I'm more of a impact or application based speaker. Because when I speak to the kids, I want you to actually take what I'm telling you and you go apply it and do it. And I really speak on business and community to the kids and I show them ways to build revenue and build wealth. And so for me, you know, I'm not gonna get up there in front of you and yell at you until you wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning and do all the stuff that you see at the average motivational speaker does. But what I wanna tell you is, what school is not teaching you, showing you how that you go and start that business or how you learn financial literacy, how you learn how to start that YouTube channel, whatever you want to do, giving us students those tools and the resources is really more so what inspires me because that's the next generation. And so if I can get in front of them and give them a message, that's what it's all about. And so I have fun with it. I love it. You know, it's a great time and you never know whose life you're changing by your words.
Right. The children are the future for sure.
Yeah, for sure, yeah.
I think that gets overlooked by a lot of adults at times.
Yeah.
For sure, okay. So, what started that? Like, what was the first speaking? Like, how did it come about, though?
Man, the first speaking engagement, 2017, this had to be around September. So it was crazy. When I first started, I had no idea that you can even speak. I didn't even think that was a thing for me. And so I remember I started the organization April of 2017. From April to about August, we just spent time volunteering in the community. School was starting back, and I was like, okay, now we got to get in front of the kids. So I started reaching out to schools, and I remember I put together a presentation, and I literally was walking around the house, and at the time I'm in college, I live with my best friends. These guys like my brothers. I'm just walking around the crib, they playing 2K, I'm walking around and I'm reciting the speech, but I have no notes and no nothing in front of me. So my bros are playing 2K and he's like, dude, like where the words at? Like I don't see anything. I'm like, bro, I'm going off the top of my head. And that's when I knew, I said, wow, like if you can do that naturally just off the tongue and it sounds like something that people have been practicing for years, you have something. And so I remember I sent out like 200 emails to all the schools in San Antonio. I was just reaching out saying, hey, we have a program. We want to come to your campus, work with your students. And this one lady hit me back, Miss Jessica Polk. I will never forget her because she gave me my first opportunity. She said, hey, can you come speak to my students? I think she was a career teacher. She had 7th grade students and she brought me in for 2 full days. So I was there from like 6 a.m. to 3 p.m. Felt like I was back in high school all over again. And I was there all day and I spoke to like 7 different classes. That was my first time really speaking. And then I didn't even write anything down. Then I went in and I just did what I knew. And that's when I knew. I said, wow, you know, this is it right here. And that was my first speaking engagement. It was at Allen B. Shepherd Middle School in San Antonio, Texas.
That's dope.
Yeah.
That's dope. So you just was cold emailing.
Yeah, man. And I still do that to this day. You know, I look at it like this, like you got to shoot your shot. You know, a lot of people stay away from it. They feel like they get too big and feel like opportunities got to come to them. I'm never going to stop working. I'm never going to stop, applying pressure because 9 times out of 10, my audience for sure, you know, is more so educators, older people, people who are probably, you know, over 35 or whatever. They may not always be on social media. You know, they may not even know how to work their phone sometimes, right? And no disrespect, nothing like that, but it's just the honest truth. A lot of them are still doing a cold email and doing phone calls. So I look at it like this. I don't care what my social media following is, and I really don't care if I have a big audience or whatever, but I'm still gonna go back to the ground that made me the man I am today. So I still go back to those emails. I do it to this day. Like last week, we sent out another round, 200 emails, getting ready for back to school. And so for me, that was a system that works for us. And it was just cold calling. And I feel like everybody everybody doesn't really know your business or anything until you actually put it out there. The best form of marketing is word of mouth. And what other way to do that is just reaching out to the people, reaching out to the masses. And that's something that we continue to do to this day, you know, cold calling and sending out emails.
Right, right. So you got this first one under your belt, right? Now what's the play? What's the plan?
Yeah. So that one was like a 2-day project. And then that opened up a relationship, which she introduced me to her campus coordinator, and then we got the kids a field trip. So I'm doing all of this, man, and I'm literally like I said, I have no resources behind me besides my team and my board. I don't have any major funding because at the time we don't have our 501c3 status. So I'm doing everything off self-funding and a little fundraiser that I was doing here and there. And after that started working, I started reaching out to all the schools in San Antonio. And then it just became a word of mouth thing. Once you do a really good job somewhere else, somebody's going to point you to another direction. And I'll never forget San Antonio opened their arms for me, and so many schools were reaching out to me. So many people were working with us, and we took off faster than we could ever imagine. So we went from doing 1 to 2 days here at this one school. Now we're doing a full week of programs and stuff like that. So now we're all around San Antonio. We're hitting everything. And then we got to a point where we were like, well, we're in college. Let's bring the kids to the school. And I did this by myself. UTSA didn't know about this. I didn't have any professors or any executives knowing anything. I was bringing hundreds of kids from the south side of San Antonio by myself, bringing them to UTSA and given them a full day at a college campus. And that wouldn't have happened if, you know, we didn't do those cold calling or those emails, or if these teachers didn't respond to us. And so, man, it took off. And at the time, we really didn't have a substantial program. We were just operating of working with students, but it took us time to develop and grow. And about a year from there, we grew into a pretty household name in San Antonio before I eventually graduated and moved out of San Antonio.
Wow. Okay. So you like to apply pressure, but I also see that you're ambitious in the way where it's like, I'm gonna take a chance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, where did that fire for taking the chances come from?
Man, that's a good question. You know, I think my whole life, my dad has always told me, son, you don't know it until you actually try it. And scared money doesn't make any money. So I'm a big Jeezy fan, and Jeezy talks about that all the time and taking risks. And so I feel like, you know, you can sit on the sidelines and say, man, I wish I can do that, or I'm hoping it can happen. And I just started making things happen because I never wanted to be a person to have regrets. And I never wanted to be a person to be like 30, 40 years old, you know, and say, man, I wish I would have did this in my 20s, or man, I wish I would have started that business. Because you come across a lot of people who live like that, and they live and saying, man, I wish I would have did that, you know, and I'm like, nah, I don't want to live like that. You know, I got all this energy, I got all this talent, I got all these people that love me and support me. I'm gonna go out there and make my family proud and build this legacy. So, you know, I got the ambitions, but at the same time, you know, I took a lot of risk. You know, I didn't know if the organization thing would work out. I didn't know if I would ever get my 501c3 status. I didn't know if I would ever get funding. I didn't know if anybody would ever accept me to be a public speaker at their school. So, but you don't know it until you tried. And my dad always said, at least you can hang your hat and say, I actually tried, versus saying, oh, I don't know if it would have happened or not. And so that was kind of my fire and my motivation. And once you start taking a few risks, a lot of people, it scares them, because you don't know if it's gonna work out. And trust me, man, I got 1,000 no's before I actually got a yes. And so I remember sending out that email. I think I sent it out to like 200 people, and she was the only person that responded. So an average person can get all those no's and be like, nah, you know what, I'm good, I'm gonna start something else. I kept getting those, emails kept kicking back, and that one person finally reached out. Sometimes all you need is that one person, and that one person is literally can change your life. And for me, she changed my life with that opportunity, and I'm forever grateful for that, because if I didn't take that risk and just cold calling, I wouldn't be here today.
Right, right, yeah, you're right. You got to reach out and just keep reaching out.
Yeah,
you know, because it's a power of numbers too.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Power of numbers.
Yeah.
Okay, so. You personally, how are you internally feeling about this doing the speakings? Like, are you like, man, okay, this is the direction I'm gonna go from here on out, or is it like, okay, this is something for the meantime, in between time?
Yeah, I think it will always be a part of me. You know, you could be 50 years old and somebody may say, hey, I need you to come speak here and talk about your experience. So for me, it always be there, you know, as a speaker. But it's not something that I always try to like push out and advertise. Because the speaking comes with the program and that comes with the organization itself. And so for me, and that's really why I branded myself more as a nonprofit executive, because and there's no shade to any speakers or anything like that, but I just didn't. To me, it's more than just speaking. You know, I can come in and speak to your kids, but I really want to see how we can bring this program to your campus and really have the kids in the program where they can see me for more than just an hour. They can see me for a full 6 weeks. And so that's kind of the trajectory of, you know, the speaking and how that came about. And that's really when I kind of changed my formula, because when I first came into the game, I think E.T., and I think he still is probably one of the best speakers in the world. And so I was trying to copy that style and trying to figure that out. But sometimes you got to figure out what works best for you. And I realized I'm not as aggressive when it comes to speaking. Like, you know, the loud and yelling at you, that's not really my thing. But I have more joy in really teaching the students and giving them application-based opportunities. So that's why I changed the way I branded myself as a speaker. Not just a speaker, but I'm actually a leader and an executive where I can bring a program to your campus and really be hands-on with your students. And so for me, you know, I see the future of my speaking is tied into the organization. Figuring out how can we cultivate business and community through our Young Billionaires Club program, and how can I bring change and equity to different communities and schools.
Right. And I would think this too also is that you said that you started in the beginning with basically with nothing, right?
Yeah.
And you had a team.
Yeah.
So you had to be a motivator to have a team starting with nothing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you're naturally motivating your team.
Yeah.
Am I right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
You guys to when I started off with the team, you know, everybody was like 20, 19. We were all college students. And I look back at it sometimes. I didn't realize how people look at you as a leader. At the time, I'm thinking I'm just, you know, we're doing this together. But for me to get 6 people who were my age to come together and do the work that we were doing, and nobody was getting paid for that, but they were doing it because the students, but also under my leadership, you know, I guess they saw the vision and they saw it longer than I did at the time. Because when you're doing it, you really don't see the end goal because you're so focused on doing it. But I didn't realize how good of a leader I could be. And that's really when I noticed, I said, man, I got to take this more serious, because people look up to me, not just these kids, but my staff, my board of directors, everybody's looking up to me. So I always made sure, like, as a leader, I always, you know, invested back into myself, because I want to be the best version of me at all times. Right.
And what is that investing into yourself as a leader? What does that look like?
You know, it's self-love, right? And so making sure you're taking care of yourself, haircuts frequently, you know, going play basketball, going running, having a nice dinner. Man, I try to do so much things about, you know, self-love, traveling, you know, creating new experiences, but also reading. You know, I read a lot. Also, you know, listen to different podcasts, sharpening my game. But being out there, you know, everywhere I'm out, I'm always trying to make sure I'm a student of the game. I'm picking up on information. I'm networking constantly. I'm taking meetings. You know, I'm always trying to figure out how can I be better. You know, no matter how much success I've accumulated, you still don't know what you don't know. And there's so much stuff out there that I probably haven't even came across yet. So I stay trying to invest in myself. That way that I can make sure I give the kids the best of me, but also my team the best of me as well.
Right. Investing in yourself is probably one of the best investments you can do.
Oh yeah, most definitely.
In the world.
Yeah.
So you say you do a lot of reading.
Yeah.
And obviously you're an author.
Yeah.
So what got that engine revving?
You know, since I was a little kid, my dad made sure I had books from Christmas to back to school. So I remember he used to read to me, was it Little Bill? I think it was Little Bill back in the day. We used to read me Little Bill before I go to sleep. And for Christmas, like, I get toys, clothes, and all that, and he'll come out of nowhere with a big box of books. And so, like, books has always been around me. I used to love the book fair back in elementary and middle school. And so I've been reading since I was a little kid. And so for me, you know, it was kind of going back to the basics. You know, when you go through high school and a little bit of college, you get away from reading because you feel like it ain't cool. You know, you're trying to, you know, you think you're a different person. But for me, when I went back to the basics of reading books, that's when my whole, like, my mindset changed, my vocabulary shifted and all that cool stuff. And I started to have more content when it came to speaking. And so books has always been a huge part of my life, and it still is. I still read to this day. I just ordered the Young Jeezy book that just came out, so I can't wait to read that. Right now I'm reading a book. It's called The Revolution Won't Be Funded. It talks about the Black industrial complex with nonprofit organizations. Really, really powerful book. I just read a book last year that really just changed my life, The Alchemist. I think everybody should read that book, man. That book, it brought me to tears towards the end, man, because it talks about this guy starting off and he hits these different journeys, but every journey is a lesson that teaches him something, and he's trying to hit to this, it's like a pot of gold or something towards the end of the book. But everywhere he goes, he encounters issues, and these issues are kind of like what you look at in your life. Like everywhere you go, you may encounter problems, but at the same time, those problems are really lessons for you to get to your end goal. And that book really just helped me, because at the time last year, I was so confused, because I was like, man, am I going to do this full time, or am I going to stay in the corporate life? And I was balancing the both, but I didn't realize that I was kind of going through my own situation as an alchemist, trying to figure out what is life, for me. And so that book changed my life, man. I love that book, and that's a book I think everybody should read at least once or twice.
It's different when you're in the moment.
Yeah.
And then you look back, the book makes you look back at the moment, right?
Yeah.
So in that moment, you had a problem that had to be solved, basically. And you felt like you did the right thing.
Now it's crazy, man, because at that time, I didn't even see this happening. Like people really don't know. I just left Pepsi 4 months ago. I'm fresh, And so that book at the time, I didn't truly realize what was about to happen for me in the future. Because I remember, man, I was like, man, I don't know. Because I was noticing the program was building up. It was more attention towards that. And that's what I'm passionate about. And it was getting harder each day to wake up. Like I said, I'm forever grateful for the opportunity I have. I enjoyed it. I still got love for Pepsi always. But it just wasn't my passion. It wasn't my destiny. And so it was hard for me to wake up every day, and I just couldn't figure it out, and I kept talking and praying, and it's crazy how your whole life can change in months. And literally, man, 6 months later, I'm here today, and it's still crazy to reflect back on it and be like, wow, that book was kind of like the prequel to where I'm at today.
Man, that one seems like it's gonna sit on your heart for a while.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? It's gonna always be on your shelf.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Okay, so your book. When did you say, man, I'm gonna write this book? This is what I'm gonna do. I want to show people how to make nonprofits.
So 2018 is when I got the idea. So my first book, the first draft, was like an autobiography. But then I was like, man, I ain't really been through anything, or I haven't lived long enough to write a book about my life. So I was like, nah, let's scratch that. But I was speaking at a school in San Antonio, and this is like one of my last speaking engagements before I graduated. And it was a young man, I think he was going to Texas A&M. And he was like, yeah, Mr. Sanders, I want to start a nonprofit, but I still don't know where to start. But as I was leaving to go to my next engagement, he was coming in, so we didn't have time to connect. But when I was talking to him, I seen his passion, and I was like, man, like, there's kids just like him all across the world, even adults who want to start a nonprofit organization, but they don't know where to start. And I remember when I first started, if it wasn't for the mentors that I met, there really wasn't any books out there that kind of just showed you how to start a nonprofit. If there was a book, it was like an old textbook that might have been 300-400 pages, kind of outdated. And so I said, man, I want to create something that's like a short inspirational guide to show people how to start a nonprofit organization, but also give that inspiration along the way, showing them how I did it as a student with little to nothing. And so that's really when the idea came about. And I graduated in May of 2019. I came home for a few months before I relocated to Oklahoma City. And I remember, like, I woke up on a Sunday. It was like the day after one of my friends' graduation party. Went downstairs in the kitchen, man. I wrote like the first 6 chapters in like a couple of hours. And I was like, yeah, we're going to get this book out. And I held the book for almost a year, and I released it on April 3rd of 2020 on my birthday.
Man.
Yep.
So you held it.
Yeah.
Why you hold it so long?
I wanted to release it on like a special day.
Okay.
Have a meaning to it. But the pandemic hit. And so, it kind of changed the way I released it and everything. But it was still phenomenal to release. Shortly we became an Amazon bestseller. We had a really big press run. Even though everything was virtual, we had a lot of supporters. And the book did really well. That was my first book. And so I remember, writing it and releasing it. And I remember when it was actually released, I called back home. I sent like 100 copies to my dad. He gave it to all the family. And it was just amazing, man. It was always something that I've always read books, and to become an author, it was kind of more than life. And then I started writing my second book in 2022, so last year.
What's the second book about?
Second book is going to be a hip hop motivational book. It's going to be called When Boys Cry, and so it's going to be basically a fictional story about a young boy who kind of grows up through poverty and through the different things that go on in his community. But each chapter is a hip hop song that resonates with our culture for mental health. But in that song, it talks about what the little boy is going through. So I think one of the songs is "White Man's World" by Tupac. And it talks about, the racism that we face and how it can affect our generations. So that chapter is about how he goes to school. He gets into altercation with the teacher, and the teacher calls him a nigger. And so I have another chapter is "I Need Love" by LL Cool J, basically talking about how he wants to be loved, but his mama don't love him because the mama got so much hate for the daddy. And he wants to love this girl in his life, but he doesn't know how to love her because he never saw love in his life. And then I think it's another chapter. It's another Tupac song. It's Crazy. And it talks about, it breaks down the song to a T. And one of my favorite lyrics of the song, he said, "Last year was a hard one, but life goes on." And in this chapter talks about how the young boy, his brother went to jail, pretty much his only male leadership. He went to jail and how he's struggling with that. And so every chapter takes a specific lyric, it quotes it at the top, and then it breaks it down through a fictional story. And it's called "When Boys Cry." And it's really to show, man, that, we do cry, and then for me, the book hits home because when I moved to Oklahoma, my younger brother had got cancer. And so, it took a mental toll on me. Then at the time, I was in a relationship that was ending we've probably been together for the last 5-6 years. So, and I'm in a whole new city trying to start a whole new life. And so I was getting hit from all over. And I never forget, man, I had to really find myself and pick myself up and realize, man, even men cry. And I remember crying so many nights, but that pain that I had then, thank God everything turned around. My brother defeated cancer and all that. But I turned that pain into passion, and I turned that passion into a profit. And so that's what it's all about for me, telling this story about when boys cry.
Man, so through all that, man, you were able to keep your mind focused.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How do you find the strength in situations like that? What is your therapy in those type of situations?
I mean, that was new for me because I never been through anything like that. And so for me, man, it was it took me so long to figure out how can I even bounce back from all of this. And so for me, it was really just loving self. I've always had a lot of self-love, but then you gotta really love yourself. And so for me, man, I was isolated. I was in Oklahoma, so I spent a lot of time to myself and working on me and figuring out, who is Sebastian? Who is Sebastian outside of what everybody knows? Who is Sebastian when you take off all of the clothes and the shoes? And really just digging deeper into myself. I got closer to God at the time. Started going to church a lot more in Oklahoma, and that isolation made me who I am. And so sometimes you have to separate the elevate. And so if it wasn't for me spending time in Oklahoma City, it'd be hard for me to be here today because when I went to Oklahoma, I got this job and all that, but God put me there because He needed me to work on myself, build myself up. That way, when I do come back to Houston, I'm here and I can do everything that I dreamed of. And that's really, that was the best decision of my life, going to Oklahoma City.
Okay, so Oklahoma seems like that was your spiritual journey.
Yeah, it was.
Sure.
It was a spiritual journey for sure. You get the offer and you're like, man, I'm about to go out here at this job, but it was way bigger than that. It was more so of me, when you graduate from college, it's more so of finding yourself because now you have to start over. Now you're an actual adult, you're in the real world, making real money. And so me going to Oklahoma, man, it was all about defining self. And it was 2.5 years that I spent there. Best thing that ever happened to me. Met some great people, some people that I'm still connected with and I got a lot of love for. Allowed me to understand my business a lot more and truly figure out how to structure it. But it made me a better person overall. It made me a man, right? I grew up, I figured out, this is how you love a woman. This is how you operate as a man. These are your do's and your don'ts as a man. This is how you stay spiritually connected. This is how you actually run a nonprofit organization. This is how you run a business. I learned so much that when I came back to Houston, it was just more so about, okay, here, we're here now, so it's time to take over.
Right, okay. So you learned how to run a business when you were out there. What were the most difficult mental humps you had to get over when it came to figuring out a business?
The biggest thing is operations. Everybody is really good at making stuff look nice, or any, I'm not gonna say everybody, anybody is good at making stuff look nice, but the operations of a business can make or break your business. One of the things I learned from Pepsi was the operations. People don't realize, like, you see the product in the store, but it takes a lot of procedures and operations for it to get like that. That comes down to manufacturing, to servicing, sales, marketing, so many things that go into it. And so for me, when I was really trying to figure this thing out, I kept running into issues with my operations because I had certain things in place, but they didn't have any backbones, or there wasn't any procedures, or there wasn't enough documentation, or maybe I didn't even have this stuff set up. So I had to realize, like, you have to have operations set up. But another thing that kept, we kept running into issues was, for me, to be honest, it was more so the experience. Because when you first start a business and you have this passion, you have this idea, but the lack of experience can hurt, because you may not know how to articulate that first deal, or articulate that program, or actually sell this program, or put on this event. And so for me, I had to go through a series of just gaining critical experiences. And that's really what my time in Oklahoma did for me. Like, when I went there, I really didn't do too many programs. I think I done like 1 or 2, but I was there because I was soaking up all the knowledge in the game from my mentors. Those 2 years when I kind of sat on the sideline and built the operations up, that allowed me to come back to Houston with a full force. Like, now, okay, I got everything in place now. So when I came back, I was just ready to sell a program because I've been building this up for the past 2 years. And so I think operations and experience are some of the biggest things a business owner can run into, because if you don't know something and you run into an issue, maybe if you would have known it, it could have prevented it or saved something. I'm not too sure. But those experiences really matter. And a lot of times we skip over the experiences because we want to jump out the gate and make $100,000 a year. That sounds good, great, but at the same time, you still need those critical experiences, because I look at it like this: it's the tale of two millionaires, and I did kind of a short series on this. You either can be rich now, or you can take your time and build that wealth up. That way you have generational wealth. It's a difference between being rich for the time being but having a generational wealth. And so for me, it's the tale of two millionaires. Do you want to be rich overnight and make it all right now and then lose in the next few years, or do you want to slowly, gradually build it up to where it lasts forever? And that's really kind of how I said, okay, I want to be that second millionaire. I want to be that person that may take a little longer, but I got some procedures and operations set up to not just me eating, but my family's going to eat and my kids is going to eat. And so that's what it, what it was for me.
Right. And I would say that if you take the time to learn all those things, you can go just rebuild another one and another one and another one effortlessly.
Yeah.
What I'm getting from that is that the millionaire who can lose it maybe just had one thing that they could figure out in that one time frame, but didn't get all the fundamentals to be able to recreate that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I would probably say it's a lot of people making money really fast nowadays, and they're not taking the time to really look at the landscape for what it is in the moment. And that might be a problem for them going forward into the future.
Yeah, you see that a lot. I mean, you see a lot of people blow up and then, there's nothing else after that, and I never wanted to be a person that blew up too fast and I didn't have anything to back it up, and so that was for me, like, let me build this the right way, because I used to always say, man, I'm trying to go viral. I want this to go viral, but then I realized, like, go viral and what's after that. I don't want to be just IG famous and there's nothing you can follow. Like, if we blow up today, I want y'all to go to our website and support our kids and go buy a t-shirt, buy a book, because I got all these operations set up. I see people go viral all the time and they just get a whole bunch of followers.
What's the purpose?
Yeah, what's the purpose of that?
You got to have a purpose.
Exactly. I don't really care to have 100,000 followers if I can't make, something off of it. It's not always about the money, but it's about having something behind it. And so I can't remember which artist talked about this. I think this might have been Jeezy, or I think, no, it was 50. 50 always used to say, like, you got to have something to fall back on. So I kind of copied 50's formula. Every time he would release something, he has something that you can go and purchase or support. Like right now, he's on tour. He has this big tour. So he has this tour going on. He markets that, but at the same time, he's marketing the liquor. He's marketing power. I was at the show last night. He's marketing all his brands at once because now he has your attention. A lot of people get that attention, and it's like it's the clout that gets to their mind. They're like, nah, man, I like the likes and attention. Who cares about all that if these people don't support you or do anything for you, And so that was my thing. Like, I gotta have something for the followers to have as a call to action.
Right. Right. You have to have something,
Yeah.
or it's just purposeless.
Yeah.
And yeah, because we live in an attention economy.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, and if you can capture the attention, you need to capitalize off of it in some way. And like you said, capitalization isn't always just about money. I mean, there's money going to be on the back end, but if you have something that you're serving or something that you want to promote as far as a concept or something you want to support, you need to take that attention and use it.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know? Yeah. Okay. So now you're here. What do you see going forward in the future?
For us, as an organization, we've been operating for the past 6 years, servicing roughly over 5,000 students through our Young Billionaires Club program, where we teach business and financial literacy training. We just opened up our Young Billionaires Club thrift store, which is, I'm gonna say, it's Houston's best thrift store. We got some of the best quality items, vintage and modern, new and used items at a great price. I don't have anything in my store over $40 because I'm giving my community the quality, you know, feel good. We have some of the best aesthetics in the store. When you walk in, it looks like a nice designer boutique, right? It makes you feel good when you shop. And so not just the shopping experience, but every time you leave, every customer that leaves my doors, they're leaving with digital financial literacy. There's a QR code placed inside of your bag on purpose. You can scan that. You can learn more about the organization, figure out how to become a volunteer sponsor or donate, but you can also access 3 lessons on investing, budgeting, credit, and saving, and how to start a business. So we're educating people while giving you a quality shopping experience. And then on top of that, all of my kids that come through the program, they have an opportunity to go work inside of the store to get that on-the-job training for a universal basic income. So right now, today, what I see is we're becoming a recognized and respected name when you start talking about nonprofits. Every time you talk about donations or thrift store, Goodwill comes to mind. It's always Goodwill because Goodwill has been around for so long. Much respect to Goodwill, but every time, well, I'm not gonna say every time, but everything changes. The world changes, new people come up and start to put up a fight, and that's what we're doing, right? So when you start mentioning Goodwill, I want you to mention the Young Billionaires Club store as well, because we're coming for that spot and coming for that respect and honor. And what we're doing right now, the future is education. You know, our long-term goal is to promote business and financial literacy training, promote economic mobility for our kids in these impoverished areas. Most importantly, we want to create kids and youth entrepreneurs to have generational wealth and success. And so what we're aiming for is to change the way our kids think, operate, and change future education, and by doing so through our program.
Okay, so let me ask you this. Do you think that the problem is thinking? Because often I talk to people and it comes about that kids aren't being taught how to think. You know, it's a listen and do, but it's not a think. Yeah. What do you think?
I think it's a mixture of a lot of things. I think it's the way they are taught inside of the school system. The school system is great. I came from public school, so there's nothing wrong with it. The thing that I think we have to do is modernize the content, because the content that they're being taught is no longer helping them when they graduate from high school. A lot of kids will tell you straight up, I don't even know why I'm learning half this stuff because I'm never going to apply it in real life. A kid told me that a few months ago when I was speaking out of high school. They were like, I feel like I'm just here just to be here because I don't think the lessons that I'm getting is actually going to help me for when it's time for me to graduate. That's kind of heartbreaking to hear from our kids. And so I think part of the reason is what they're being taught. Household is another issue because every student doesn't have the luxury of going home and having a nice environment. Sometimes mom and daddy may not be around. Sometimes mom and daddy may fight a lot. Sometimes there may not be food on the table. There's so many issues that go on in our impoverished areas that affect our kids. So I think it's a mixture of a lot of things. But also social media is really transforming the way they think. When I speak on this, it's really for the Black culture. A lot of our kids they only know what they see. And so if they're seeing rappers, entertainers all day long, that's going to kind of plague their mindset to think like, I gotta go and do that, or I gotta go and get the fast money so I can have that chain like Lil Baby, or I need to work at this job so I can have a whole bunch of designer. And that's because that's what's being promoted. And if you think about leadership in the Black community, you always see entertainers in the forefront. You never see your local councilwoman. You never see your local councilman. You never really see that local community leader. You see them in certain areas, but they don't get enough respect as much as the entertainers do. nothing wrong with that because I love, like I said, I love rap music. I love our culture, but I think in order to really change the way our kids think, you have to place different people in front of them. And I think it all starts from the bottom. I think we have to work through the bottom and then eventually get to the top. But most importantly, I think we have to stop selling entertainers as community leaders. You know, there's nothing wrong with Lil Baby. Man, I love Lil Baby music, but he shouldn't be used for votes, you know, from President Biden. Stuff like that doesn't make any sense to me, right? When you seen President Biden go and get Cardi B and go and get Lil Baby, and they're doing all this promotion. But you're putting those people on forefront with the president. That just goes to show that you view them as black leadership. They're not. They're black entertainers. I don't think they're leaders of the community, and they do some great things. Not taking anything away from them, but if you're putting those people in front of everybody, in front of the masses, that's programming the kids to think that's the leadership. That's the people that we should follow. Unlike, you know, the person that's in your community that's really creating some change, that's really down there fighting for you. And so I think in order to change the way they think, I think we have to change the way our culture is viewed. And for us, it's always been entertainers, and it's a great thing, but at the same time, it's really hurting the kids because that's all that they see. You know, that's all that they really care about, you know? And so in order to really change, you really have to do some groundwork, and that's probably gonna take generations. I'm not gonna say it's gonna change overnight, because I know it's not gonna change overnight. It's gonna take some generations, but it can be done, but it takes all of us. Not just me, but everybody around has to step in and do their part.
Right. We have to say, hey, I want to be a part of the solution.
Exactly, not the problem.
And no matter how long this solution takes, I want to be a part of it.
Exactly,
Yeah, it's interesting. I think Dave Chappelle said a long time ago, what does Ja Rule have to do with this or whatever?
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Exactly. Like, it don't make no sense, man.
Yeah. I see it as it can be a distraction.
Yeah.
Because you put Lil Baby next to this politician and it's like, okay, the kid is going to go start listening to Lil Baby right after you get done talking.
Exactly, yeah.
So is it, do you feel like it's cool? It's the thing that we got to implement is cool into it because that's what they respect, or we have to get them to understand that this is what's actually cool. Not saying that that's not cool. Don't get it twisted. I'm not saying Lil Baby isn't cool, but what these leaders are trying to do is cool for building the next generation, and we have to sell that to children. I guess that's what you're saying.
Yeah, I think they know what sells in our community. You know, community work, nonprofit work is not attractive to a lot of people. It's great work. You know, I do it all day long, but it's not attractive to the masses. So a lot of times, people of influence, they like to put what's going to sell, most likely. Lil Baby and Cardi B is going to sell. No doubt about that. They're going to get you 1 million people. They're going to get you a lot of votes. It makes sense. But you really have to change what's cool. And for us, you think about like, okay, growing up in the neighborhood, the dude that played basketball or the dude that's like the local D-boy or whatever, they get the most attention, the most clout. All the girls want to talk to them. Everybody wants to be like them because they getting all the attention. But the little dude down the street who's probably a straight A student, may not be the coolest aesthetically wise or whatever, that person's on a different route. Everybody's gonna flock to over here because that's what's cool. But nobody's gonna mess with this person because they feel like that's nerd or whatever. So I think you have to change what looks cool in our community. And I'm not saying that ain't cool, go do this. No, we have to figure out what was cool for our community and what's positive all around. So figuring out how can we balance and cultivate everything that we like and we love and give love to everybody. And so I think that's really what it comes down to, changing what's cool. And that's gonna be hard because that's generations of things that you have to peel back on. Not just our generation, but you gotta go generations back and peel back and figure out like what's actually cool. And that's really how you would change the way our kids think. And you have to start while they're young. So if you really want to change the way they think, you got to start while they're young. So maybe right in middle school or right in elementary, you start putting certain people and certain things in front of them that you're going to change the way that they actually think.
Right. The building blocks are the most important.
Exactly.
Part. Yeah. They say from 1 to 7.
Yeah.
You know, the most important.
Yeah.
But yeah. I would probably say it would start with having more leaders. Because I feel like we lack leaders in the community.
Oh yeah.
And I guess we could take that back to fathers. You know what I mean? They're naturally the leaders.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. We have to change the face of cool in the community for sure. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there's no one way to put a finger on that to figure out what that is.
Yeah.
It has to be a trial and error, but the activity creates the trial and error.
Exactly.
You know,
Yeah.
and I see you as a person that's part of that activity.
Yes, sir.
So, do you have any like summer programs for the kids?
Yeah, we just completed 2 summer programs. So our Young Billionaires Club program is pretty much year round. You know, we work with the different schools, organizations, after school facilities to bring our programs there. And then we also have our summertime. So we did our first program this summer with A-Leaf Independent School District. We had about 30 kids. All of our kids came through the program for 16 days. All of them got an opportunity to open up a bank account with the credit union with the $50 bonus. And their parents got that same offer too. So that was our first program. Had a great success there. Then our second one was at Worthing Early College, which we completed in partnership with Civic Heart. So summertime is a great time to get our kids involved. And so next summer, our kids can actually go through the program where they'll be training at the event space and then go across the street to the store to start working. And that'll be next summer. We'll have that probably for about 60 days. Yep.
Okay. So do you get a lot of people to volunteer?
Yeah, we get a lot of volunteers, but I'm always opening my doors to volunteers. You know, anybody that's an expert in the field that wants to teach a class or lead a facility, lead a program, you know, we're always looking to bring those people in and help educate our students. Always looking for volunteers to come out to our different events, our different charity events, and then also, you know, come volunteer at the store as well. So our doors are always open, and you can, you know, get at us on social media, Instagram and Facebook at SandersHand.org. And visit our official website at www.sandershand.org to become a volunteer.
Okay. That's what's up. So, okay, look, this is Uncensored Wisdom. And at the end of every episode, I tell everybody the same thing, right? It's like your grandpa sitting on the porch, he give you that uncensored wisdom. It's raw and uncut.
Yeah.
So for anybody that's trying to start a nonprofit organization, or they want to be a speaker, and they don't know how to get started, they're a little nervous and they don't know how to jump out there, what uncensored wisdom would you give them to give them that push?
Man, stop trying to start stuff because you feel like it comes with a certain level of clout, or if you see somebody on social media do it, you feel like you can do it. Don't get into this industry because of the PR that comes with it. You got to do this work because you actually care and you're intentional. Our kids in our community do not need more people who are poverty pimping. We already had that enough. We need people that's gonna come inside and actually do the groundwork. And I say that because the average nonprofit lasts like a year or two. They might have started off with an idea, started off with a dream, and they realize like, man, I'm way in over my head, we out of here. That's common. And over 65% of nonprofits usually fail anyway. And so don't come into this work thinking it's gonna be easy. I'm gonna get all this grant funding and all that, and I'm gonna do this, and you don't really care about these kids of this community because, man, it was like I said, we still really don't even have a major funder. Everything that we've done is because I've set up operations because I wanted to make sure we were sustainable. If I didn't care about this work and I was like, man, I'm getting tired of this, I would have stopped this 3 years ago when I kept running into, you know, circles, you know, but I figured out a way and I changed the way we operate, and I kept evolving. So I said all that to say, don't come into this work thinking it's going to be easy if you don't really care about these kids or the community, whatever your mission is. You got to really care about this stuff, man, because it's hard, you know, it's truly hard. You know, grant money is hard to come across. It's hard to find sponsors. It's hard to get donors, right? It's hard because that's just how the world is, right? And so when you're trying to do something good, it's times 10 harder to get that support. But if you truly care and this is your calling, your purpose, your mission, whatever it is for you, God's gonna make a way. But I'm tired of seeing people come into this thinking it's, you know, they want the clout. I'm tired of seeing all these motivational speakers pop up because everybody's behind the camera now, right? And so anybody can yell at you on the camera. I'm tired. It's funny because I see people yelling, but then you put them in person in front of a crowd, they don't even have that same swag anymore. So I'm tired of seeing people do this stuff because they feel like they can monetize off of it. It's corny, it's fake, and it's low key a little weird, man. So don't come into this thinking like you're gonna gain off of it. You know, really do this because you actually care. And that's why I do this, you know, and I'm not trying to, you know, downplay anybody or diss anybody, anything like that. But our kids and our community has had enough of poverty pimping. So you gotta be real with it. And the thing about it is, kids can weed out the fake. And kids will tell you straight up. You know, I've been in rooms where kids, if they don't like what you're saying, they turn their head, they get on the phone, they do all kind of stuff. Kids are brutally honest. And so you'll get a real awakening when you go inside these schools and these communities thinking that, oh, I'm gonna do this work, but I don't really care. A child can feel that. And so don't do that to yourself, and definitely don't do that to the next generation. They've already had that enough.
So before we shut down, I need you to explain to them what poverty pimping is.
Man, poverty pimping is like, going inside these communities and you know exactly what you're doing. You're going in there, you're looking for the photo ops, you're dropping off, some items and some stuff here and there, getting pictures, building yourself up, but you're not really doing too much to help those people. Ain't nothing wrong with doing, events and stuff like that. But our people need more than that. And we have a lot of leadership that poverty pimps. We have a lot of people that show up for a back to school drive or a Christmas giveaway just because, okay, I gotta get these pictures off, or I gotta go to the community because it's gonna help my PR. Nah, and like, don't do that. I'd rather you donate that money to a nonprofit organization that's hands-on in the community, that has a grasp on the community, versus you going out there just for a photo op, just so you can build up your personal brand. And you may see a lot of that from influencers, politicians, business owners. A lot of people do that. Poverty pimping is something that people utilize the black community for. If you pay attention to anybody that's looking to do something, and you may see this a lot in politics, but if you pay attention to somebody that's looking to do something, they go straight to the black community and they want to do some big annual whatever, giveaway, whatever, just so they can build their personal brand up. And these kids, these people may not see them for the next 2 or 3 years. That's poverty pimping. And not just black people do it, but everybody do it. And so it's kind of getting to a point where it's like the new it thing. It's like, if I do something wrong, if I get backlash, let me go do a giveaway because it's gonna help my PR perspective. Nah, that's sad, man, and that's low down, man. I'd rather you just get that money to somebody that's actually doing it versus you trying to get out there on forefront to sell whatever you're trying to sell.
Man, I totally agree with that. It's bad out here. It's bad out here, bro.
Yeah, for sure.
It really and truly is. I understand having the camera with you, but at the same time, I have to know your purpose. And sometimes you can see crystal clear through people's purpose.
Yeah, you can see, man. And we record a lot of stuff what we do, but that's because we have to have that content for our volunteers, donors, and supporters, and for our kids. So a lot of that is purposeful content. But there's a lot of stuff that I've done that hasn't hit the internet. When I first started, and I'm not gonna lie, I used to record everything, but I realized, like, dude, like, some of that stuff you can kind of peel back and hold back from. Some of that stuff you don't always have to record. And I just start keeping it real, and I was like, you know what, man, everything we're not gonna record, and I felt way better about it, and I'm still operate like that to this day. Like, everything doesn't touch the internet, and so for me, get the good content that you deserve and you need, but don't be out there trying to sell it as like, this is who I am, and then back down and drop a clothing line right after it, right? Or go out and drop some merch or whatever. I don't know, man, but you see it a lot. People do that a lot. So, it's poverty pimping. Everybody does it. Like I said, just be intentional with it. That's all I ask for anybody that wants to work in the community.
Right. And I would also say this: it is a tough balance because you do have to record things.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, you got to. Yeah.
For business purposes and so on and so forth. Yeah. And it's like, but you're genuinely doing it, so it puts you in a weird spot. And
it's
so
tough. Yeah.
That same spot though is a spot where people that are doing it for the wrong reason could hide in.
Yeah. That's what. Yeah.
So
they can hide behind it. Yeah.
It's tough. It's tough.
It's
Man, Sebastian Sanders.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate you for coming up on Uncensored Wisdom.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, yeah, man. Anytime.
Break!